Sokolov discovered a phenomenon called the orienting reflex, which was an electrophysiological response to error detection, or a response to novelty. That's another way of thinking about it. And so, for example, if you're walking down the road, there's a loud noise behind you, and the noise is of indeterminate meaning. So perhaps a car has jumped a curb. That's a possibility. You'll go like that and stop and turn and orient towards the place in the space-time continuum where your stereo vision has localized the noise. And you do that really without thinking. I would say it's an act that occurs outside the domain of free will. And the reason you do that is because you might die if something unexpected happens, right? Something that's outside your framework of expectation. Now, you know your framework of expectation. You're an ignorant creature. You don't know everything. You don't even know that much. And your representation of the world is actually rather shallow and low resolution. It's good enough to get you where you want to go most of the time. But sometimes it isn't, and sometimes it's error-ridden enough, given the circumstances of time and place, that the error will kill you. And so you're equipped with instinctual mechanisms that orient you towards the source of the revelation of your ignorance. And that's something very interesting to contemplate, I would say, physiologically and neurophysiologically, but also philosophically, and I would also say to some degree theologically, right? That you have an instinct that orients you to the source of your ignorance. And you better have an instinct like that, because there may be a shortage of knowledge, but there's no shortage of ignorance. And so, and that's, part of the problem of the relationship between the finite and the infinite, right? I mean, we're finite creatures. We can't know everything. We can't even know as much as we need to know. And that means, in some sense, we have to be able to deal with the fact that we don't know enough. And one of what Sokolov outlined, at least in part, was the underlying neurophysiological mechanisms that made this orienting reflex possible. One way you can measure it, for example, is if you put a gadget, a galvanometer, on someone's finger, and you play them a sequence of tones. When you play them the first tone, they'll show quite a response, and then the second tone lesser, and after that lesser, until finally it'll flatline. And people thought about that as habituation, but the more sophisticated cognitive scientists regarded it as the building of an internal model of the stimulus in all its variety of parameters. Interesting word, stimulus. We'll return to that. And then if you play someone a different tone after habituating them to that sequence, the electrophysiological response will reinstantiate itself. Or even if you alter the spacing between the tones, the same thing will happen. And that's all part of this response to novelty and then the mapping of novel territory. This is unbelievably important, this discovery, because you don't learn anything except by encountering it as novelty first. So it's fundamentally the initial processes of everything you do to learn everything there is to learn everywhere all the time. And so, like I said, he should have won a Nobel Prize, but people really didn't understand the fundamental significance of this discovery.